Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewilded Wellness Podcast. Today, I'm going to be sharing some thoughts with you. It's a little bit of a different type of episode than my usual episode. I was kind of processing some things recently and realizing that as I conversate with many people in this body of work that I do, supporting others, there's a lot of depth and emotion and things that go into our healing journey, as you probably know. And a lot of times when I sit with my reflections of my own, I realize perhaps they'd be worth sharing with others. And so today I wrote down some reflections and thought that I would just come on here and simply share them. Um, I have been deep in navigating client data, right? So hair tissue mineral analysis results, genetic mutations, biome effects. Like this is very analytical, very heady. Trying to chew all that up and chunk it down and make it make sense. And sometimes my brain needs a little bit of a break from that type of um, information and sharing. And so I thought that I would share in a different way than I normally do. And I think that, a lot of you will find yourselves in this. So here we go. I want to talk about trusting the unseen. I think that this is something that we all need to understand and talk about and, you know, be reminded of, especially if you're someone who is, trying to make shifts in your health and life. Culturally, you know, we, there's like a big mind fuck culturally. Like, I'm going to be honest, right? If you look at society and this whole growth continuum that we're supposed to be on, it just is not real. We have to look at nature. We absolutely must remind ourselves of how, like, the two are completely different. So, I want to talk about trusting the unseen and then coming to acceptance of it, right? And embracing a quieter growth of healing than the expectation of this crazy growth continuum that is not real. All right, that's the best way I can say that. So, this is just a message from my heart into helping us talk about and understand the trust of what our body knows. Like, we need to get to a place of trusting what our body knows. And when I say that, I am not talking about our intellect and our thoughts, right? Your body has a language of its own that maybe your mental loops don't allow you to acknowledge, right? And when I say your mental loops, I'm right there with you. It's conditioning, it's thought processes that we have that we repeat in our heads that need to be broken and shifted and changed. So I think with that said, many of us are walking through a landscape that truly feels unfamiliar when we navigate these healing journeys, especially if you have delved into what's called mineral balancing, which, right, the way different practitioners practice that is so varied. I get people all the time who are super confused by this because they think it's one thing and then they hear someone else and it's completely different from person to person. So, many of us are walking through a landscape that is quite unfamiliar when we enter the depths of the healing journey, looking at, our biodata. I'm going to say that word because it's like I just mentioned a bunch of different, um, functional nutrition tests that show what the body is showing that goes incredibly deep. Okay. And so it can feel like we're on this journey with no clear map. So, if you're feeling exhausted or confused or like you're moving through fog, I want you to know that is kind of normal. It's common and normal, and you're not the only one who feels that way, and is part of the process. From my own experience, I've learned that our bodies know what they need. Even when our mind is arguing with it or trying to push ourselves to do more than we literally can. So, for the past 10 plus years, I've worked with hair tissue mineral analysis. That was the first functional test I added. Now I have multiple, but this is the core, right? And so, in those years, it's been a learning process for me trying to understand how to more deeply support others. And honestly, nobody's prepared for this. You got to get in the arena and do it. And I've realized along the way that I haven't always been able to deeply support others as effectively as I would like because I was still in my own process, right? And what I've come to see is this: when your body perceives safety, it begins to remember how to heal. But that process, once you hit a point of safety, whatever layer of safety you are finding yourself in, right? Like, so there's layers of safety, quite frankly. You don't just like one day become fully safe, if you know what I mean. If this is not resonating with you, I did a whole episode on the cell danger response that you can go check out, and I'll try to remember to link that in the show notes for you. Um, so that you can go back and listen to that, so you can get intellectual for a minute. But when your body perceives safety, so let's say, for example, your blood sugar has been all over the map and you finally stabilize your blood sugar. You know, are able to do that. Your body's going to remember how to heal. That's just one example. But because you're so used to not being safe, this new process can be very disconcerting, right? Like your nervous system now has to rewire itself and you have to unlearn the habits of survival and threat. So if you're used to being in that cell danger or whatever danger your body perceives, right? It can be so many things. That's why I said safety comes in layers. Um, that's why this body of work is so beautiful, is because we are working on those layers. But, you can feel like you're stepping into uncharted territory, where these familiar signals that you've experienced for so long no longer apply. And then everything just feels completely uncertain. And even it might feel scary to you. And so that's why trusting your body's wisdom is so vital, because you can only go as fast as the slowest part of you wants to go, right? That's not about effort or forcing yourself to just push through. It's about deep acceptance. It's about allowing yourself to be exactly where you are without the judgment, without the shame. And a lot of times we're in our own heads. We have mental loops. We might still have imbalances that make those mental loops loud and strong. Right? Right, because our brain is trying to rewire and fire and do all these things, right? So the more we become safe, the more we now have this new way of being that we have to step into, right? Okay, so the other piece is, let's say you come to a layer of stability that you are not used to and you feel like you can breathe. Um, you might feel a sense of grief for the years of challenge you've had and the things that feel like a loss, right? Like, um, maybe things didn't go a certain way, right? Or maybe you have a pile of things to now unravel that you're aware of. Um, right. So it feels great to feel the relief in your body and in your system. But now all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's all this other stuff to navigate, right? Do you see what I'm saying? And I've seen how this process can feel like another mountain to climb, right? You get one thing kind of cleared up, and, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, for years I carried so much instability, so much stress, so much unprocessed emotion. Um, but for me, what I've also learned is that the slower we go and allow, the deeper we can integrate. Okay. And I talked about integration versus correction in my last episode. And if you haven't listened to that yet, please, please, please go back and listen to it. It's really important, um, because the collective does not think this way. All right. So it's definitely a conversation that needs to be brought up over and over. But the slower we go, the deeper we integrate. And then, the self compassion that we have, um, which is really just being truly kind to ourselves instead of like beating ourselves up or getting upset at the process or whatever things that we're feeling. Having self compassion is foundational. It's something that we all need to learn. Um, right? So it's almost like you got to think about it in terms of like uh, a mother to a small child who has a ouchie, right? Like, they can't verbalize things the way that adults can, but they're going through their own little process, right? So we have to have self-compassion the same as a mother would have for a small child who is, going through it, right? So, um, when you're running on fumes, your body is telling you, hey, I need to be refilled. I need space to rest, to restore, to gather my strength. And this is not a sign of failure. Um, it's a sign of what you've carried. It's a sign of your body's profound wisdom and resilience. It's saying, I can only do this if I'm supported and given time. So I invite you, whether you're just beginning to or already deep in your process. I don't know where everyone's at. I don't, maybe you're new here and new to your journey, or maybe you've been, working on this for years. I just invite you to trust that where you are now, even if you don't like it, it is where you're meant to be, right? And we have to like see this so that we can accept the slowness and the sometimes what seems like invisible progress. And to, I don't know, like we would hold a baby, we got to hold ourselves with patience and kindness. Because true healing, like I talked about in my last episode, isn't about fixing ourselves. It's not about correcting ourselves. And it's not about doing any of this overnight. If we're trying to do it overnight, it's because we're trying to get back to the rat race of life that we're told bigger, better, faster, more, growth always. And that's not fair to yourself. It's absolutely unfair to yourself. And it's a lie. So it's all about embracing the process. The ups, the downs, the quiet moments of stillness, knowing that your body is doing its best to guide you back to wholeness. And sometimes that means your intellect doesn't really know what's going on. And you need to give yourself permission to be okay with that and just be. Just be here today in your body now. And that's really all you need to do. So, holding faith in the silence and trusting what we cannot see. One of the hardest parts of healing, physical, emotional, spiritual, all of it, is holding on to faith when the results are silent. When months pass and nothing seems to change, which is not true, actually, because the only constant in life is change. But it is easy to doubt, to wonder if we wasted our time or if we're just fooling ourselves. And on the surface, it can feel like a cop out to be told, trust the process, right? But deep down, I believe the truth is this: you are building something beautiful beneath the surface, something you can't yet see. I've been planting tons of seeds this year, and I've been watching my little baby seeds. Um, like every day I go out and I look where I planted them, and so many days I'm like, man, you guys are just not really doing a whole lot. Like, did I do something wrong? Did I not plant you right? Are you not getting the right conditions? Nothing looks really different. Um, what's going on, right? Like, it's tempting to think that nothing is growing. Excuse me. Um, right? Like, maybe I put them in the wrong place. Maybe the seeds are dead. Right? Like, should I just give up? I don't actually want to give up, so I don't think that. But I I think about I have to remind myself the truth, okay? And there's a lot more to this, obviously, we could go into, but last year, I have this hillside garden. It's mostly like, floral and plants and such. It's not like food, right? But I introduced some mushroom spawn into that garden. And basically, that is an ecosystem that's built deep underground, right? Like, you don't see what's going on. Um, and so I watched and I waited, and part of me was like, "Oh, maybe they'll come up like in the shortest amount of time that they say," right? Like, I was like, "Oh man, hopefully that'll happen," right? And I, of course, watched and waited, and there were times where I was like unsure. There were times when different mushrooms came up, they weren't what I planted, right? I was, like, worried that I was gonna waste my money before I even bought it, and then after the fact, I was like, "Oh, man, what if I have to try this again?" Right? Like, all the thoughts, right? Like, the same is true. We think all these kinda things when we're trying to, like, work on our health, right? And we're doing all the things. But the truth is, if it's given the right conditions, enough patience, enough time, the right environment, all that, the right temperature, quite frankly, enough water, right? Like, they began to emerge. They pushed through the soil, breaking the surface, transforming the landscape, and then they began to proliferate, and then they would come and go. Now growth is like that, right? It's often invisible for a long time. It's kind of like that mycelium network connecting roots beneath the ground, working silently, strengthening, exchanging nutrients, building resilience. The cool thing is, if you've ever done this, like, you're given a certain amount of um, starter, but then it grows and grows and grows and grows. It's really cool. So it's like this unseen ecosystem going on, right? And the cool thing about the mycelium network is that it helps sustain even trees, like the massive trees, and other plants around it too. But, some of these things only bloom for a brief moment in given seasons as well. Anyways, here's the truth. Most of the real work happens behind the scenes. We don't always see it immediately. And we might not even notice it in the moment. I can't tell you how many times people have experienced progress, but they're so busy looking at the other things that they don't like still and acting like nothing has changed, or that they didn't have to clear up a bunch of stuff. Like, a lot of stuff needed to be cleared up before they were in the right position. Right? And they forget that this is a process. Right? So if we step back and we take a big picture view, we can see the cycles a little more clearly, right? And nature reminds us that growth often requires that patience, that trust, the willingness to honor the unseen, right? So, how many times do we all walk outside, we rush to our cars, we go about our busy days, and we miss the quiet beauty unfolding around us? Right now, the lilies are slowly opening their petals, and it's beautiful. Each phase of that is brief, but vital. You can catch it each phase along the way, or you could miss it. So when we look at the garden from a broader perspective, we see the rhythm, we see the cycles, we see the natural timing of life. So if you're in that quiet season, waiting, unsure if you're making progress, questioning if the effort is enough, know this. You're not the only one in this experience. Healing and growth don't follow a straight line. I know you intellectually know this. Okay, but it's in our bodies, right? So the most profound change happens when we're least aware of it, or maybe when we stop like overthinking about it. We can trust that beneath the surface, our body is working in ways we cannot recognize. And it's always, always trying to build some level of resilience, rewire old patterns, and lay the foundation for what's to come. So every seed, metaphorically, if that you plant, every effort that you make is part of a larger process. It's one that unfolds in its own time, its own way. And sometimes it's in the stillness, in the patience, that the deepest transformations take root. So I am just here to say, please be gentle with yourself. Have some self-compassion as you move along in your healing journey. And celebrate the small signs of growth, even if they seem minimal, or maybe you're just not noticing them, or maybe it seems like what's going on is invisible to you. Um, just celebrate where you're at. Or if you can't celebrate where you're at, honor where you are at and just have some self-compassion. This is part of being human. We are all growing in ways that are often not visible to us on the surface or to our minds that have patterned to stress and danger. We have that work to do as well. So part of the challenge can be that we're navigating a new territory that's unfamiliar to us. So we can, reframe this and learn to trust in the unseen work, because the mushroom will pop out of the hill when the right conditions are there for it. The bloom will bloom if the right conditions are there for that flower. And it will happen exactly as it should with that in mind. All right, my friends, sending this one with love. I hope that this resonated with you. I hope that it met you where you're at on your journey, and I'll be with you very soon.